So let's now talk about clouds. So there are all sorts of symbols. There are all sorts of things that we can dream of. We've already spoken about water. If you haven't seen this video, make sure you click the link above. In this particular video, we shall be moving on to the next element in the series. And the next element is, of course, air. And one of those potent symbols that we might dream of, that's an example of a symbol related to air, are clouds. Now, once again, if we want to interpret a symbol, it's always best to meditate upon them. I mentioned this in some of my other videos, that we want to create a strong set of symbols that are personal to us. But in order for us to do that, it's also a good idea to get the perspective of someone else. So now, clouds in general, we can look at the Aztec system. And in the Aztec system, they talk about clouds a lot. When it comes to Aztec dream interpretation, they talk about clouds a lot. Now, we can have all sorts of dreams related to clouds. We can be looking at the clouds. We could be flying above the clouds. It could be a clear sky and the clouds are parting. So in that way, we can have multiple different dreams in which we see clouds. Now, according to the Aztecs, clouds can symbolize an obstacle in some way, depending on how you're interacting with that cloud. You could be riding the cloud, which could symbolize that you've overcome that obstacle and you're seated, you're now driving that obstacle towards your particular goal, or you're overcoming that obstacle in some way. Or maybe you're flying and the clouds are parting, which could symbolize that the clouds are, that the obstacles are now being removed and you've got clear skies ahead. Or maybe you're just relaxing and you're looking up at the clouds and you're seeing all sorts of shapes, which could symbolize the various opportunities that are ahead, depending on all the shapes. Some of them might be obstacles, some of them may be positive opportunities. So it depends on how the dream represents itself and how the clouds represent itself. So one thing to keep in mind is that when you dream about clouds, it doesn't necessarily mean that there's an obstacle on the way. Because you could have been on a holiday and you could have been cloud gazing, and that may have sunk into your unconscious mind, and you may be repeating or re-experiencing that while you're dreaming because your mind is trying to process that. So it doesn't necessarily mean that there's an obstacle on your path when you have a dream about a cloud. So it's good to keep that in mind. However, if you've had no interaction with clouds during the day or recently, and you suddenly see clouds, or particularly your mind is drawn to that, you wake up in the morning, you're like, oh, that's interesting, I was flying on a cloud, and the cloud was sort of one of those main seaters or main symbols in your dreams. So it's only if that particular symbol is a main seater in your dream. So for example, if clouds are something that is really in the forefront of your dream, that it's something that I personally at least would find that it's significant in some way, or your unconscious mind is trying to give you a message in some form. So it's important to keep in mind that if you are cloud gazing and you dream of clouds, it doesn't necessarily mean that you are going to face some form of obstacle or there's some form of obstacle in the way. And once again, when it comes to dream interpretation of any form and of any system, it's a very good idea to stop yourself from getting too attached. To stop yourself from getting too attached to your interpretation. Because sometimes we might think, oh, there's an obstacle on the way, but then you might start to overthink as to what that obstacle is. And that's not useful here. What is useful, the reason why this is useful, is because if we gain a certain level of mastery over dreaming, and we were to see that there are obstacles on the way, we can become lucid and we can clear the skies. We can become lucid and clear the skies, and that's what makes it useful. Because in that way, we can clear out any obstacles that might be on our path to a certain goal. So in the same way, if you have a dream about a certain thing that you're trying to manifest or create in your life, let's say you're trying to start a restaurant on the beach, let's say, a restaurant on the beach, and you have a dream that you've now created your restaurant on the beach, but there are so many clouds in the far distance. So now that is an example of something that might tell you that's on your way. That's on the way, but you're not going to be able to create that because you've got so many obstacles that you need to overcome. So if you become lucid, you can clear out those obstacles simply using your intent, because when you're lucid, you can change the dream in many ways and therefore signal to your unconscious mind what you'd like to take place. So it also depends on what sort of cloud it is. It could be a highly dense cloud, a rain cloud, which should symbolize a certain kind of purification. If you were to look at the previous video, which I spoke about water and rain, a certain purification of an obstacle that's on the way. In the same way, the symbolism can change depending on what sort of cloud it is. So it's very important to keep that in mind. So once again, it's important to form your own interpretation and your own meaning for these sets of symbols. But there are archetypal meanings, and according to the Aztecs, this is a certain meaning when it comes to dreaming about clouds. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you're new to this channel, please remember to click the like button. Please subscribe to this channel and please click the bell icon. And if you wish to support the growth of this channel, please remember that you can support this channel by becoming a patron on Patreon. You can find the link in the description box below or in the screen in front of you. So, thank you, take care, and I shall see you very soon.